We're going RVing. Let's go to Mosaic Stadium now. The press. I still can. There, we got you. Wait, hey, RV, how are you?
Good, Rod. How are you doing?
Good. You, of course, have had the dramatic weight loss. You're half the man you used to be. What are you, like 100 pounds you lost? What are you at?
As of yesterday, I was 154.4. I weighed 154.4, and I was 262.8. So it's just like a shade under 109 pounds. So only 155 more pounds to go, and I disappear, and there'll be a resounding cheer. So,
are Slurpees on this diet?
Not one, unfortunately. Slurpees contributed to the circular nature of my physique as much as I loved them. I loved grape. Whenever I could find a grape Slurpee, I had to do that. A lemonade Slurpee. Oh, I mean, anything. I just absolutely loved them. And Slurpee and wine gums was a really good way to visit 7-Eleven.
So just if you could vote for a flavor, what would it be?
For Slurpee?
Yeah.
It has to be grape. It's a real coup when you can find one, because it's not always available. But when there's a grape day at 7-Eleven, that may be a day when I really weaken.
How about that?
Jen from the Four Seasons writes in. She says, Slurpees in my house every second day, even in the winter. The Four Seasons, of course, is your home for the UFC and the Seattle Kraken fan club. Anyways, let's get down to business, RV. I appreciate you joining us from day 7 of Saskatchewan Roughriders training camp. And let's do a broad CFL discussion, but how are things down there in training camp?
I am just loving watching this. I've usually been kind of a training camp curmudgeon. I think as I get older, I've kind of morphed into this. Let's just get on with the regular season. Enough of the appetizers. Let's give us the main course, that type of thing. But this year, having been deprived of any live sports to watch for the most part for such a protracted period, I'm really enjoying this. I haven't missed a session yet. And I think the most encouraging thing out of this whole camp, and part of me, my eyes are sort of distracted because I'm watching camp as we speak, has been, I think there was a lot of concern, especially after the 4 Achilles tendon injuries 8 days ago. What's going to happen when the camp actually begins? And for the most part, the injuries that have taken place during camp have been the type of injuries that usually take place during camp in terms of their nature and in terms of their volume. And there wasn't this catastrophic day such as the Thursday leading into camp. So I think that's been the highlight, has been that what we feared would be what we thought would not portend well for training camp is not materialized in terms of a spate of injuries. So everybody's pretty much healthy and looking as good as one can expect at this juncture, especially considering the protracted hiatus.
We've been covering, you and I, pro football camps for decades, and they've changed, right, from the 90s and the Cal Murphys banging heads 4 hours a day and 2-a-days, right, to now, shoot, they barely wear pads at all. How's this camp changed because of COVID contact and all the rest?
I really haven't noticed that much of a difference. The thing that really has changed and is that, as you mentioned, the grueling 2-a-days are gone, and the 1-a-days aren't even that long. I mean, it starts at 10:15, it ends at it starts at 10:30, ends at 12:15, and Craig Dickinson is a stickler for time. So if Craig Dickinson says 12:15, it's usually 12:15. It's a very efficient camp. Every group's usually doing something at once, and I think they're very cognizant of the need to get work in, but not to be overly, to tax the players too much. So even though the regular season is shorter than it would ordinarily be, the training camp is longer than it would typically be. So I think they're pacing the players. They're giving them Sunday off this weekend, which I think is a wise move after going day to day to day to day to day. There's really no barometer to compare it to, but the players you would expect to look good have looked good. A few minutes ago, Cody Fajardo threw just floated a beautiful pass down the right sideline to Shaq Evans for a completion. And it's just like, okay, yeah, it's anybody's expecting any rust, perhaps from Cody Fajardo or Shaq Evans. I don't think we're going to see it based upon that lovely completion that I just witnessed against 2 defenders, by the way.
RV, I was given this evaluation of the 5 quarterbacks in Roughriders Camp by somebody with the team, and I want to ask you if you agree with it through 6 days. Number 1, Cody Fajardo, in order of their play. Number 1, Cody Fajardo. Number 2, Isaac Harker. Number 3A, Mason Fine. 3B, Paxton Lynch. And 4, Tom Flacco. How do you feel about that?
I've really liked what I've seen of Tom Flacco. I haven't been preoccupied with every rep. I've been watching the first teamers more than some of these things take place simultaneously. So if I'm apt to miss a rep, it's liable to be the younger quarterbacks as opposed to the Cody Fajardo reps. Maybe that's a bad decision because there's no competition for number 1. But I've liked what I've seen of Tom Flacco. He's got a nice presence in the pocket. He's when you think of the name Flacco, you don't think of an athletic, mobile quarterback, given the nature or the sedentary nature of his brother Joe. But Tom Flacco can really move around nicely, and I've liked what I've seen there. Paxton Lynch, you can see why the physical tools that he possesses were so intriguing to the Denver Broncos. He's thrown some passes that just have a lot of steam behind them. So. And there's a bit of accumulated rust there that he's got to shake off. But he's looked okay. Isaac Harker, Craig Dickinson said the other day that he's come back a little bigger, a little stronger, and he is so in command of everything. He's just such a student of the game. He's going to be we still don't know what type of quarterback he's going to be. He may never get that opportunity given who's ahead of him on the depth chart. But we do know that he, as a coach, he's going to be immensely successful if he decides to go that route. He'll probably make more money in terms of his vocation, if he were to stick with mining and things like that, because he's got a master's degree from the Colorado School of Mines. He's just the young man is an absolute genius. So he may be settling for football in terms of finance, but he just understands every nuance of the playbook probably as well as any Rider quarterback has since Ron Lancaster or Ken Austin. So. He can work the game mentally. Is he going to be able to do it physically? And so far, he looks. I look at Fine. I look at Flacco. I look at Harker, and in a lot of ways, it's not. Maybe Harker has a slight advantage on the basis of experience, but in terms of their skills, there's really not a huge difference between any of them, or their performance for that matter. That was a long-winded answer that said nothing.
I'm going to throw in some comments from our viewers. From Randolph Zorro watching in Ontario. He said, is Tom Flacco related to Joe? It's his brother, right? Is it his little brother?
Yeah. And I guess the whole Flacco family is athletically inclined. Tom Flacco is also drafted by the major leagues.
Not to be confused with Fiacco. Ryan McCarthy watching in New York State says, I saw Tom Flacco play for Towson in a game versus the University of Albany a few years ago, and he shredded the Albany defense. Don't sleep on him. Jeff in Calgary says, with the long layoff, no two-a-days, limited pad time, it'll be interesting to see, and no preseason, it'll be interesting to see how it goes in August. Chris Bird in Toronto, Argos fan, says, fewer concussions and a spate of Achilles tears. Well, we pray that that's not the case. And I guess when I asked you if there's been any changes in camp from years past, that is if they have backed off RV with any kind of physical activity or contact for fear of those 4 snapped Achilles last week. Like that, I almost wonder how much they changed. But to just change my question on the fly here, what do you expect between now and the regular season and then into the regular season in terms of quality of play and the number of injuries?
I'm not sure that. I was expecting a lot more of those little hamstring and groin type injuries that would be more indicative of a layoff. Those really haven't materialized. You can look at the NFL as a bit of a model there in that they didn't have preseason last year and they ended up having a very good season. And there were some injuries naturally. I guess the difference is that the NFL players can afford to have trainers and personal trainers and not have to work outside of football to feed their families during the off season or during a pandemic. Whereas the CFL players, in a lot of cases, they had to choose between working out 5 hours a day and working 5 hours a day. But if you're using the NFL as an example, I'm not sure that the preseason is going to be missed. I think it's maybe the first game or two will be kind of a feeling out process, but isn't that always the case with the CFL? Because the preseason is so short anyways. There's only 2 games. The starters don't get a lot of, they rarely play in the first game. So I think there's always that adjustment period anyway. I look at 2019, the first few weeks of the season are kind of an illusion anyway. You look at the Ottawa Red Blacks in 2019, they started off 2-0 and Dominique Davis shredded the Riders secondary and and by the end of the year, the Riders were in first place, and Ottawa was a laughingstock. So the first few weeks are always a little illusory anyway. That probably won't change.
RV, with your lid there, because it is a Flame Tech Football Friday, I got to ask you this. Let's just switch gears to the National Football League for a second. Does Aaron Rodgers wear orange by the end of this regular season, do you think?
Oh, I hope so. I remember how happy I was when they signed Peyton Manning. That something has to give there. It absolutely has to give in Green Bay, unless there's a real making up. And it's not looking like that is going to happen. So once you look beyond that, who has the cap room and who has the obvious need for a quarterback? And in both cases, that adds up to the Denver Broncos. So if they can accommodate that contract, they need a quarterback. There are some teams that have a lot of cap room, but they've got a quarterback. Cincinnati, for example, has lots of cap room. However, they drafted Joe Burrow first overall last year. So when you combine need and the ability to absorb the contract, I would think that Denver would be the front runner. And Aaron Rodgers it doesn't sound to me like he's the type of guy who's just going to let it all wash over and show up and at Green Bay and let bygones be bygones. This one sounds really bitter and really personal, and he sounds pretty intractable. Now, I'm nowhere close to that scene, but just reading the way it goes, the way it's looking, I think you're going to have to move him, and Denver would seem to be the most likely destination. I say with fingers, toes, and legs crossed.
We got about 2 minutes. What's the buzz in the press box there on the Yankees-Red Sox being canceled last night because of a COVID outbreak, including Aaron Judge? The USA men's basketball team's game tonight canceled because of a COVID outbreak in Vegas. Are we going right back to where we were last summer? What's the buzz there?
Murray McCormick and I are the only ones in the press box right now, and there's no buzzing. I look at what's happening in California, and now they're enacting a mandatory indoor mask mandate again. You look at the Delta variant going crazy, and you just wonder, and hopefully this is just fear speaking, and I'll be proven wrong, but you just wonder if there's another surge that's coming that may be so powerful that the vaccines and everything won't be enough to neutralize it in terms of creating a situation whereby that has to be a daily going concern again. We're kind of living a life right now where we feel like things have opened up, but you watch what's happening in the States, and it sure doesn't take long for this virus and its various strains to migrate and get out of control again. And I just hope that we haven't reopened too early, and I hope we haven't let our guard down too hastily, because last time I checked, there's still people dying of it. There's still people being diagnosed with it. And it's absolutely lethal and scary. I'm sitting not far away from C-22 in the press box where Warren Woods reliably sat. And every time I look over there, I think of Woodsy, and I just hope there aren't more Woodsies coming down the road. And I just wonder if this is a little hasty.
RV, thanks for the time. Enjoy the rest of camp. I really appreciate you. Keep up the great work at the Leader Post. I'm loving the reports.
Thanks so much, Rod. Love your show as always. Take care.
Thank you, bud. Robert Vanstone from Post Media, columnist and coverer of the CFFL.
You're watching Rod Pedersen On Demand. For more of The Rod Pedersen Show, visit rodpedersen.com or follow Rod Pedersen on social media.